What's going on, folk? In this video, we're gonna be working on one thing and one thing only. That. You know what I'm talking about? And to make it even better, we're gonna have manager approved BC Racing coilovers that we gonna install in this car. So stick around, check it out. You heard? The video is gonna be a little bit different than normal, as I'm gonna just be updating you while I'm working the whole time, rather than me working then updating you afterward. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna keep you guys in the loop on this more or less shouty, you know what I'm talking about? So, got the manager already approving of the coilovers, you know what I'm saying? Got the BC Racing joints. And yeah, he's gonna be tight to install, you heard me? Because I have some mix match coilovers on this thing right now. And to get the car dialed in to work as good as it can, you need a proper set of coilovers. To be fair, my black R35 is on BC Racing coilovers. My wife's 350Z is on BC Racing coilovers. And if we walk just this way, the silver R35 is on BC coilovers, and the Supra is also on BC coilovers. So you can tell around here, we like some good quality shit. You heard? So let's jump into it, let's shout it. All right, so what do I got? I've got a set of BC Racing standard set of S13 coilovers here, because the idea for me is, even though I can have custom coilovers made and, you know, get all crazy with it, when you start getting into that kind of stuff, you end up potentially kind of, how do I put it? You kind of end up in this world where, like, you start overthinking things a little bit too much. For this car, it's so slammed, it's so low that I'm looking for basically the regular set. Now I have 8K rear springs, 10K front springs. From what I understand, that's what it comes with. And when I contact BC, they asked me, a couple of questions about the car. And I basically told them, hey, I got drop knuckles in the front. I have, standard stuff in the rear. And the car is basically slammed, that's how it is. But BC also offers like a slam set, which I believe they call it extreme lows. The extreme lows I don't want, because technically speaking, the extreme lows would work really good if I had like no body kit on this car, or if I had like factory lips and stuff, you know what I'm saying? Because that way you could slam the body to the ground. Technically speaking, the car is really low, but the body panels are what pretty much keep the chassis even lower. Not to say the car is not low, because it bottoms out the exhaust and stuff like that, but 3-inch exhaust, you know what I'm saying, kind of stuff like that. So check me out, let's shout it. Dang, the fresh joints, you know what I mean? So it's gonna be pretty cool. We're gonna install these, and we're gonna start with the front, because the front is always the easiest on the S chassis. So yeah, we're gonna rock that right now. Bam. All right, pull the wheels off, typical centered, you know what I'm saying, doing the process. Something to note prior to removal is how I already have the suspension set up in the car. Now, it's not 100% where I'd like it to be dialed at right now, but take notice that the camber is all the way maxed out inwards, and then also, like that coilover, these coilovers, you can't tell, but this one also has a bottom slot and a top slot that are, bottom has a circle and the top is ovalized, and that allows you to pitch in your control arm a little bit more, so it gains you more camber. So basically what I have right now here is max camber in negative camber setting, right? So I keep that in mind before I even play with these coilovers. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take off this one coilover and then compare it to what I have here. Because they are different systems, this is an old coilover from Japan, and although it's straightforward, remove the 2 bolts here, remove these 3 bolts here. Normally you're supposed to have your brake line connected to here, but I don't do that because of high lock. I don't want that brake line to get tangled up and get yanked out, so whatever. So I'm gonna pull these 2 bolts, pull these 3 bolts right here, and we're gonna rock that thing, shawty. All right, let's start with the obvious here. They look very similar, but they're very not similar. We see this spring here, it has more of a beehive shape to it, where it's small at the bottom, gets larger, gets small again. Whereas the BC coilovers, the spring is the same size top to bottom, so that's something to take note. This is revolver coilovers from Japan, and I gotta be honest, for them to be in this kind of shape, considering they haven't seen much real use, kind of disappointing, to be honest. I paid a lot of money for these back in the day, to be honest. I bought those back in I think 2014, 2015, long time ago, before I started getting my BC coilover game right. But what's cool about BCs is also tells you front left. The other one says FR for front right. Boom. We own the left side, you know what I'm saying? Good thing don't say driver's side, passenger side, because, well, if it did, then it, you know what I'm saying, it wouldn't work out. But let's talk about a couple differences. You see side by side, they're overall about the same height, but the spring length and location of where these top hats is different, right? So for me to get this back to this height, I gotta spin this sleeve all the way up. Whenever you're doing coilovers, if you want to set them up correctly, right, and that's for like the maximum performance use, that kind of stuff, what you want to do is remove your top hat, take the spring out. Inside of this cushion right here, you're gonna have a bump stop in there. So what you do is remove this, pull the spring out, put your top hat back on. You take this, put it in your chassis, and wherever the maximum low you want the car to be, you spin the sleeve to get you that destination with the bump stop bottomed out. So with the bump stop completely bottomed out, which means it cannot compress any further because it's stopping you from going down, that's the max low point you want to be. From there, you put your spring back on, you know, do your whole process. There's better videos on that kind of stuff that explain more about how to set it up proper, you know, for race spec, street spec, all that stuff. This car, this chassis, this setup isn't really that necessary, you know what I mean? So, oh man, I see a potential issue. Hold on a second here. Do I have this correct? Okay, just making sure. So it's funny because the reason why I just said a potential issue is these knuckles are actually S15 knuckles, and S13 bolts that bolt into the knuckle are actually smaller, and the holes are smaller. These are S13 coilovers, so I actually have a too large of a bolt, but I forgot that I did a conversion to put these sleeves inside the knuckle, so it converts it down to S13 bolt size. So I got S13 bolts, so that's cool. But yeah, long story short, maybe a little short story long, shorty. All I'm gonna do here today is spin this sleeve to match the height of this sleeve. Now, there's some low boy little secrets here, because back in the day we had a lot of, you know, coilovers that really wouldn't get low, you know what I'm saying, whatever. And like I said, BC offers extreme low coilovers, but what I didn't want was, I didn't want a coilover that only gave me the ability to be slammed, right? I have the ability myself to continue to lower the suspension by separate means. So I didn't want a coilover that was slammed, because typically the slammed coilovers have different valving, different spring rates to keep the car slammed and low. I still want the car to feel and drive like a set of fresh BC coilovers like the rest of my cars do. So I want the car to work as best it can. I'll adjust the suspension however I need to compensate for the difference of the car being slammed, right? I want the car to ride as good as it can, you know what I mean? So what we gonna do is we gonna match the camber. I'm gonna put this all the way in just like I had here. Now keep this in mind too, different companies, the size of your camber distance, right, can actually be different. If you look close, this nugget is actually a little bit larger than this nugget. And this, I think, actually has more space than this does. So technically, I could probably camber this in further than what I used to have this. So either way, it doesn't matter. We're gonna start with maxing out the camber, because if I need to get more camber, I can get it out of the bottom slot here. You know what I'm saying? So let me toss on some camber joints. Let me toss this joint on, because I'm excited. I really want to put this on already. But before I toss this on, yeah, dog, I'm gonna spin this sleeve up to match this height here, and then I'm gonna use a measuring tape or my micrometer, or whatever you wanna call it, to measure them so I can put it back to the height that I already had it. Even though, how do I put it? Even though in the future I plan on lowering the car, it's like, oh, why not lower the car now? I'm still in the process of doing this front bumper. We are in the process of doing major surgery on this bumper. So if you watch the previous video, you will watch a lot of that work, a lot of the effort. So basically, I'm not exactly sure how high this car is gonna land just yet. The front does need to come down, but I'm also gonna run into an issue that I've already been starting to run into, of where the tire is touching this area here in the wheel well. So I already know I'm gonna have to do a little bit more modification, because, where is it at? Oops. I put these tires on, these Accelera 351s, I think they are, but it's a 225/40 series sidewall. So I have like a taller series sidewall than I wanted to run originally. So with that, right, I'm losing wheel clearance. So I may not be able to go lower too much further, but until I get this bumper done, I'm not really gonna pursue dropping the front of the car down just yet. Also, the side skirts are pretty low. I gotta get the front definitely lower for sure, because right now the car sits a little bit raked like this. But let's put this together and let's get some things popping. Just want to point out real quick, of course, but if you look close, you'll see how much larger this slotted hole is than this one, right? Bottom hole standard size, bottom hole standard size, but this top hole and this top hole, this one's only slotted a little bit, this one's slotted a lot. And if we go to the top of the coilover, like I said before, this is slotted only this much, and because this is larger, this is more slotted. So let's put these back down real quick. I still gotta measure them, but to give you an idea, to give you a little update, shouting, basically I can get more camber out of this top hat than this top hat, but I can get more camber out of the knuckle from this bottom than this bottom. Now, part of this is more than likely due to kingpin inclination, and that has to do with how your knuckle aligns with your suspension roughly. Just you know, just imagine there's a line from the bottom of the ball joint for your control arm to your shock tower, right? There's a line, right? If you have your knuckle cambered like this while your coilover is like this, straight, when you go to rotate, your knuckle will rotate more funny. When they're more in line together, you'll have a more proper rotation, you know what I'm saying? Whole geometry, all that shit. You wanna learn way more about that. I'm not the guy for all that. your boy is trying to be a hot boy, you know what I'm saying? Trying to make the car work right, but look tight, you know what I'm saying? Look tight first, work right second, you know what I mean? But yeah, those are things to look out for. Not all coilovers are built the same, not all coilovers are the same. Again, if we look one more time to compare them side by side on the ground now, you see how much longer this shock is, the spring is than this spring, right? Shock for shock length, they're actually pretty similar. This one's a little bit longer than this one. If we look at the thread pitch, this is a much tighter thread pitch, this is looser thread pitch. Now, positive side to tight thread pitch, you can dial in the car super tight, right? However, any little tiny crust gets in this and like you're gonna have the fight of your life trying to get this to move, anything to move. These being a larger thread pitch, you can get a little bit of crust, and because you have actually a larger thread pitch, it's easier to get it through it, you know what I'm saying, that kind of stuff too. Also adjustment wise, you can adjust much faster on this larger thread pitch than this. You're spinning this for like 5 hours just to move this section, you know, here to here, where this one, you see me do it real quick and it's like boom, boom, you know what I mean? Also, another thing I'd like to add is the locking collar style, right? If you look, there's a bevel here on this edge to seat itself really smooth and nice and tight inside the bottom of this sleeve. So that's pretty cool. This is just, these two are just flat, right? Also, another thing to notice, the length of these two, right? Where these are located, this is at the bottom of this sleeve. This is in the middle of the sleeve, right? Doesn't matter. Couldn't really tell you, to be honest with you. But what I'm telling you is coilover brands are all built different, right? And that's just a perfect example of that, you know what I mean? So keep that in mind whenever you're trying to change your suspension and do your shit. It is hard to know, but if you already have somebody that has this BC coilovers on their chassis, whatever, then you can go, okay, I know it's working for him, he's got what I got, or he has what I want, boom, you know what I'm saying? So keep those things in mind. Not all coilovers are the same, shouting. I know it might seem obvious, but a lot of coilovers are modeled off of each other. So a lot of them share similar specs. Not specs, but like, I guess specs, you know what I'm saying? Specs, boom. You heard? Let's toss the thing on the shoulder. No, I gotta measure first, then we're gonna toss some shit on. Because I think I have this sleeve a little bit lower, and before I installed this, another thing, right? Before I install this on the car, I'm gonna get the other side, and I'm gonna match the other side with this one as close as humanly possible to mirror each other, because if not, then I'll have one side taller than the other, and then you'll be battling back and forth which side's which. Not that, technically speaking, the driver's side should be a touch higher to, you know, offset the driver's weight, but to be real, with these coilovers, man, I mean, car drives really good. You ain't gotta go crazy like that. If you're building a super track build type car, go crazy, get your scales out, do your whole thing, boom. But for what we got going on right here, man, you ain't got to worry about that thing, shorty. We're gonna put that thing on, we're gonna bust it out, feel me? Boom. Manager's back. So far he's got the approval going, you know what I'm saying? All right, so if you watch me, I measured by eye. We did the quick eyeball measurement, right? That's to get you in the general bar park as fast as possible. And you take this guy, your top hat to top hat, and your bolt slots to your bolt slots, because these are your mounting positions, these are your mounting points, right? So the thing is, if this top hat, excuse me, Bush, if this top hat is turned like this, the mounting point's not going to be the same depending on how you measure. So you want to square this up as much as you possibly can. Boom, right? Now, from the factory, when BC puts these together, there's a human being that puts these springs on, right? So this one side could be a touch tighter than this side, you never know, boom, whatever the case is. So you see me take the micrometer and measure from the bottom of my sleeve to the bottom of my shock. I have the same shocks. So I measure the bottom of the sleeve to the bottom of the shock, right? That should tell me that both my sleeves are in the exact same height. To double check this, I need to measure from, like, let's just say the bottom of this, because it's kind of easier to grab onto, to the top of, the bottom of here, right? That way I have a fixed point to a fixed point, which you could measure from here too if you wanted to, whatever the case is. But like hard point to hard point. And yes, you can bend this top hat and you can change your measurements dramatically from measuring this side to this side. So I measured, as you watch me, that's why I like to measure from the shock body to the bottom of the sleeve, because the sleeves should be the exact same sleeves. This one shouldn't be up or down or left or right. They should be the same sleeves, just one's this side, one's that side, right? So in the spring you can get the micrometer, you can measure the body itself to body itself, and then measure the bottom to the bottom, boom, right? Now, I measured from the bottom of here to the bottom of here, right? That you watched me do a second ago. Excuse me. The bottom of the top plate to the bottom of the spring, because I want to make sure that there's a little plastic sleeve here, and that's to help keep the springs quiet, right? I want to make sure that this sleeve piece here and the bottom of this distance on the on the spring itself is also the same distance from side to side. Now, technically speaking, like I said, you have a driver's side and a passenger side, right? So you kind of potentially might want to offset them a little bit, or offset it by height, whatever you want to do. I like to square everything up first. Get just as square as you possibly can. That's why I have this tool. So my whole shocks are all squared up. And even though I measured the two, they were off by one little line difference, right? Now that one little line difference can be the difference between potentially this shock tower plate being slightly up and this one could be slightly down, or vice versa. So that's something to keep in mind too, is that when you're measuring this stuff, there's tons of ways to measure it, but you're always going to want to measure it hard point to hard point from the proper locations, right? So that's why I like to measure off the bottom of the shock body, is because that's a hard point, and this is also a hard point from the bottom of the sleeve. So this helps me get it as dead square as humanly possible. I know like a 1/16 of an inch or an 1/8 of an inch isn't like that much, but I like to be within a millimeter of a difference, right? So a millimeter of difference is like about as negligible as it can get. 1 mil is not gonna make or break the whole chassis. Honestly, to be fair, if you're off by like, a 1/16, that's really not the end of the world either, but I like to be as close to within 1 millimeter as humanly possible. So that's why I got the micrometer. It helps me square up my whole shit, you know what I'm saying? All my cars are done that way. And then once you are dead square, we go and drive the car for a little bit. Don't change anything right away. Get a feel for the suspension, let it start working, because springs are gonna settle, suspension's gonna settle, things are gonna get moved, tweaked, whatever. You drive like that for like a month, get a feel for the car, and then go, okay, I think this side of the car needs to be adjusted, or I gotta adjust this corner, or I gotta do this, or I gotta do that. I'm rubbing more on one side than the other. You start measuring the chassis and start saying, okay, I'm a little bit lower on one side than the other side maybe, you know what I mean? And things can loosen up too, so check it out, shall you know what I'm saying? So let's put some coilovers on so I can put the front of this car down already. You know what I'm talking about? I just want to give you guys another example. Let's see if I can show you my camber slotting. You hear that difference? That's this knuckle sliding in and out of this housing here. So we're gonna go all the way in for maximum negative camber, dog. You know what I'm saying? So feel me on this, right? In here, you see me take a hammer and a flathead to the collar here. Now don't get me wrong, the coilovers do come with coilover keys in order for you to lock them, but you know, it's a little mean to take a hammer and a chisel, but it locks it in super tight that way, right? These two guys, sometimes you have to use a hammer and chisel to get them loose, you know, over time. Rusty, crusty, that kind of stuff. Usually like the coatings on this coilovers are really good, so you don't have to usually worry about those, but it does, you know, water, dirt, debris. It makes it hard to like maneuver them and stuff, but we gonna do that like that, you know what I'm talking about. So boom, did that thing like damn, you know what I'm saying? Also, I like to note that these look great. That's tight. So technically where we're at right now, we should be a little bit lower than we were before. I have the coils locked, the collars locked now. So, you know, over time you should check these, because especially with this McPherson strut, the whole assembly rotates as you rotate your wheel, so these can sometimes come loose, you know what I mean? Also, you want to double check these collars and make sure these are tightened up really good and they're locked together, because again, if these start coming loose, your whole spring will start coming down. You'll drop height on one side, plus you'll change the way the spring feels. So just things to look out for when you're, you know, doing this stuff. So like I say, when you install these coilovers and this stuff, you should be doing your initial install, driving around for a while, doing a bolt check again later. How much later? Depends on how much you trust your work. Me, I trust my work very well, and usually I'm one and done. I put it on there and I don't check it again unless I hear a problem, there's a problem later on, you know what I mean? So it usually works out pretty well for me like that. So boom, you know what I'm saying? Shout it, just double check your work, do some driving for a little while, do your thing, boom, boom, you heard? Bang. Now we're back to changes on coilovers, right? So let's cut the wheel all the way so I can show you. I'll cut the wheel. We're pretty damn turned, okay. So, differences in coilovers too are gonna be where your wheel sits. Right now, kind of got a problem here. The wheel is against the coilover spring. So, I can't drive with my wheel on my coilover whatsoever. Now, how can I adjust that, right? Well, I can loosen this top bolt and I can pull the knuckle away from the coilover, which is probably what I'm gonna do first, because yeah, this ain't gonna work, Captain. That's why it was so hard for me to get this wheel on. But simple adjustment, just something to keep in mind of when you're fitting really big aggressive wheels and different coilovers. The spacing in this area specifically could be slimmer on some coilovers and wider on others. Now, of course, I don't know where yeah, here we go. Yeah, so this coilover, I believe that this is actually protruding further away from the body than the BCs, right? And again, these are, slight oddities between coilover companies, stuff like this. So just something to take care of. Basically, all I'm gonna do now is just loosen that top bolt, pull the wheel away, kind of go from there, you know what I'm saying? So with that being said, we'll see where we're at. If it's not enough, you can do things like add wheel spacers, you know, 5 mil. You can add 10, 20, 30, 50. You can have 10 million mils of spacers if you wanted. Or if this is an issue too, there's another way of going about it. And if it becomes an issue, then we'll go over it then. Nah, fuck it. Let me just tell you right now. let's just say because I want to be slam boy with my, I think it's a 10.5 or 11-inch wheel. I'm pretty sure it's 11 inches wide, so 18 by 11. So it's really, really a wide wheel, right? If this becomes a problem, what I will do is I will raise the height of the shock body, and then I will take the spring collars and I'll drop the spring down so the wheel sits inside the coil channel. This little gap in the spring right here, I will have the wheel sit inside this gap if this bolt doesn't work out. So yeah, wish me luck, you know what I'm saying? I'm not gonna cover that, the going back and forth and over and over and over. We just gonna be putting some coilovers on here. We're gonna be ripping and dipping, you know what I'm saying? So check me out, little shorty. Damn. I can start saying, whoa, day. You know what I'm saying? You all right, mate? Just kidding. Check me out. So here we got old JDM, old school, tight. It's actually really tight ass, tight shit. Look at that. Stud gets loose. There's actually an Allen key head at the bottom of that, so that's kind of cool. Also pain in the ass because I had to Allen key this to get it loose because it was spinning, versus these have a knurl inside the stud, so that way these don't spin. So, you know, whatever. But a couple things to notice: that this bottom bushing is a spherical bearing, which I've only seen on these coilovers and none other. So that's pretty cool, to be honest, you know what I'm saying? But these are strange too, because you can remove this body and this stud from this piece. So if this piece gets worn out, you can just change this out. These are one piece, and these are affordable to where you just change out the sleeve and you just take one sleeve off, you put one sleeve off, and you're rocking, right? Another thing I want to mention is the size of the diameter of this shock tube is wild. You know, I'm talking about like a 50 mil. I bet, boy, thick, boy. These are thinner, you know what I'm saying? These don't need to be this big. I understand this size, like in the front, because like I've seen in the past as chassis snap these. That's why the front ones on McPherson strut are usually thicker, because they support more load, especially for drifting, right? But yeah, we can see here, side-by-side comparison. We'll just put them height by height, but shock body, bottom sleeves are about the same length, but then we get to the springs, they're actually pretty close in length too. But if you notice, we have that, right? The good thing about that is when you jack the car up, you allow the wheel to come down, right? But I like a certain amount of travel, you know what I mean? You want it to sink down enough to where the wheel can be easily passed. Otherwise, you're fighting stuffing the wheel in and out. And if you're gonna be drifting, that's not fun. Also, like I said before, technically you'd want to remove the top hat, pull the spring, check the bump stop, and max out your low level where you want your chassis to bottom out at max. We're not going to do that because, like I said before, your boy wild, you feel me? So yeah, interesting. We got 8K rear spring, and these springs are really old and I don't see a label or a number on them. So let's assume it's an 8K, but you know, that's not a really good assumption. But it's really cool to see these old school coilovers made in Japan, you know what I'm saying? But yeah, I'm definitely not gonna toss these. These are good to have around in case you ever, let's just say I get into a fucking bender and I bust this up. I could at least just toss this on until the replacement for this comes out, you know what I mean? So just as like a 911 backup, you keep these hanging around. These are definitely not going for sale. It's cool to see old school nostalgia stuff. I guess I'm kind of an old school fool, you know what I mean? So to set this up though, let's show you. Right, so you have the whole length, but the shock compresses, which I'm having a hard time pushing down right now, but the shock compresses down, and that's where my height actually is. So like, I need this much distance. So I have two choices. Let's see. I have two ways to adjust this if I choose, right? One is take the bottom of this sleeve, match this, loosen this shock up enough to where these two match together. And then that way, when this spring compresses, right, I'll have the same effect, which I might do. I haven't quite decided that just yet. Or I just take this sleeve and I just shorten it to make up for this distance. To check this distance roughly, I would compress the spring and I'd measure from the floor to the housing here, right? But it's difficult to do. And once you compress this and you measure, you have a general idea, because usually you have like a piece of wood and you're sitting on it to compress it, because I'm by myself, and you know, that's just kind of how it is, right? So that's what we fit to do. Also, future reference, some shock bodies, like where these sleeves are down here, some of them are actually offset one way versus the other. This in this case is not, but these are sometimes offset, which allows you to position your shock inside the frame, inside the channel, a little bit like this or a little bit like this, you know what I mean? So there's benefits to that, but we don't have that, which is fine because we don't need that. We're not dialing in this car for pro drifting and like whatever type of shit like that. We're hot boy number one, you know what I'm saying? Number one gangster, hot boy, that's it. So we're gonna hot boy this shit, and I think I might do that with the spring, because when you jack up the car, it does let the wheels compress down, let you do your thing, boom, boom, you know what I mean? So we'll see. Give me just a moment and you'll find out what's next. So I went with, as you obviously watched, I went with doing this coilover the same as how these were. So the spring is, movable. It'll compress the shock a little bit, and then, it's on the car basically. So basically I lined up the body, or this little guy right there with that little guy right there, because the body length technically doesn't matter. So I lined those two up with how far the top plates were extended, so they all like lined up. The springs are pretty much the same length, it's pretty cool. Dropped it down, pretty much lined it up with this one. Ended up doing the same thing with the other coilover on the other side, obviously off camera, because it's faster if I can do it off camera. So now I went with this. I decided for the time being, you know what, I know this works and the car drives fine, so I might as well run that on this side for a little while. If I don't like it for whatever reason and I want to change it, what I'll end up doing is taking it all back out, which I doubt I won't like it, but if for some reason I got to have it a different way, or I want to change something dramatically, then I can just, pull it back out. It's only a few bolts, luckily, and I'll just reset it, do its thing. Now, if you find yourself in a position like that, I recommend that you do one side at a time, right? That way, if it's your first time doing coilovers or something like this, if you, let's just say we're doing the front end, right? Or we're in the back end. If you're doing the back end and you end up taking everything out together, and making a whole bunch of changes and whatever, you'll have a hard time finding back to your original point, whatever the point you're trying to start with, right? By doing just one side, if you run into an issue, oh, I don't remember how this went together. Does this bolt go this way or does it go this way? Did I use this bolt or do I use this bolt? Because there's similar bolts, but they're different lengths. If you do the one side first, any questions you might have will be answered by the other side being untouched. You know what I mean? I've done coilovers for a long time and suspension for a long time, so a pretty good idea of what I need to do for each side, so I can take apart everything, no big deal. But if it's your first time doing it, or if you end up, you're not quite sure, you know what I'm saying? Just do one side, leave the other side alone. That way you have comparative notes right then and there, you know what I mean? Worth checking it out, you know what I'm saying? Let's put some coilovers in this thing, put the car back on the ground, and see where she settles, you know what I mean? And here we have it, folk. Back on the ground, loud sound, top down, you heard me? Definitely dropped a little bit lower in the front, which is kind of nice. The rear might actually come down a bit too, but for right now, I'm gonna leave this car at this position, at this height. The side skirt seems to be pretty much level. The front's a touch higher, so I'll give the coilovers a chance to be driven around a lot, settle down a little bit, you know what I'm saying, whatever. If this is your first time putting coilovers on your car, or if you never put coilovers in your car that are adjustable, like these are 32-way adjustable. And what that means is the coilover shock is 32 clicks between hard and soft on the dampening settings, right? So my recommendation, personally, if you've never experienced it or dealt with that much adjustability or have any adjustability to begin with like that, I recommend you set your height where you want it and you start with going all the way soft, all four corners, all the way soft. Drive the car like that for like a few days. When you daily drive your car, you feel the same trip to work every day, that kind of shit. That's the most helpful thing you can possibly do in setting up your suspension. The more you do stuff like that, you'll be able to feel the differences and changes in your car faster. I don't recommend doing coilovers and control arms and this and that. I recommend doing control arms, driving it around for a while, feel it out. Okay, boom, coilovers, drive around for a while, feel it out. So with the coilovers, with so much adjustment, like I said, start all the way at zero on all four corners, drive the car. Give it a couple days, it's gonna probably be really bouncy and whatever the case may be, run that. See how it feels. Then, if you go, yeah man, car's way too bouncy, I don't like it, go to 10. 10 clicks from hard, so from 0 up to 10. All four corners together. See how it feels from there. If you like where it's at, leave it. If you don't like where it's at, obviously adjust it. But every chassis is gonna be a little bit different. As an example, my wife's GR Supra, I put the coilovers right on the way they came and didn't change anything but the ride height, and they drove fantastic. It was right where it needed to be for that vehicle, that setup, daily driving, the type of driving that car is going to be doing, right? For my silver GTR, that car, I probably spent about a month and a half fine-tune the suspension, because they're really a heavy car, like 4,000 pounds, so they're not light, right? So I threw the coilovers on it, slammed the car, you already know how it goes. Drove the car, and it felt good, but I felt it was too stiff. So again, I went 5 clicks from 0, so 5 clicks, you know what I'm saying? From 0 being soft, hard being the 32 max, right? I went all the way down to 5, drove the car, said, it's too bouncy, but 15 clicks was just too much, right? I didn't rock 15 clicks. So I said, okay, I'll meet at 10 clicks, rock 10 clicks. I drove 10 clicks for about a week or more. Same trip, every single day, same car, see every change, how it feels. I hit the same bumps on purpose to see how the car would react. Would it bounce too much? Would it, you know what I'm saying? Like what it would do. So then from there, I think I ended up doing 1 or 2 clicks more in the front, seeing how that felt by itself, because I wanted the front to compress a little bit less or be a little bit less squishy. And then after I did that, I felt how I could feel the rear, the difference in the rear itself. And the rear is 1 or 2 clicks in the end less than the front. You know what I mean? Because the front isn't like, the front is heavier, but like not by a lot because the transmission's in the back on those cars. So do all 4 corners adjustment together at the same time. Don't give it like 10 seconds down the road. Oh, I don't like it. Give it a fucking couple days. Feel how the changes are. That way you can really settle into the adjustments you're actually making and understanding it. You know what I'm saying? If it's a car you don't drive every day, start driving it every day. Don't got AC, don't got heat, who fucking cares? Drive your shit, you know what I'm saying? That's all there is to it, you know what I mean? So by doing these changes, these setups, these things, you'll be able to feel any difference, you know what I'm saying? If you want to go the opposite direction and go maximum 32 clicks at the hard level, by all means do it, you know what I'm saying? If you think that you want your as stiff as possible, figure it out. You might want it that way. Maybe you got a custom set of coilovers that are meant to be turned up harder for whatever you're trying to do to it, you know what I mean? So that's the cool thing about BC Racing coilovers is you can have them custom made for however you want. For example, this car, I just went with the standard set because I knew I was gonna rock a hotboy setup. So the spring rates and everything it's at, this car is not a drift car, but it will drift, you know what I mean? So this car is where it's at. If in the future I need to change something, I can always get different springs, different spring rates, different height springs. They have different heights, they have different rates, all kinds of shit. This car took me a very long time to dial in, and I mean a very long time. I now have the car dialed where I like it. It works out great. Boom, type. That guy right over there. In the future, when I end up putting BCs on that car, the set that I'm going to spec out for that car is going to be somewhere between a track car and a daily driver, right? Probably like 65 to 70% daily driver, 30% track, but something that has a better spring rate and a better valving for being able to drive on the street, still comfortable, and then turning the shit up when I go to the track to make it drive more aggressive and drive better for the track. You know what I mean? Not the drag strips, I'm talking about them turns, shorty. You know what I mean? So just something to keep in mind, you know what I mean? And spring rates and shocking and valving and all that stuff, if you don't know about it, because I really don't know that much about it, I'll be real with you, ask them. That's what they do for a living. They sell you coilovers. They have tons of cars, tons of specs, and tons of shit. Email them. I'm gonna leave a link in the description for the coilovers for BC Racing, so that way you can check out what they got. Quality shit, like I said, that's why I have it on so many of my cars, you know what I'm saying? It's ain't like an ad, but like, I'm doing this shit, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, this video is about me putting BC coilovers in the car, right? Obviously, so boom. I've been running them for years, probably 10 years or something like that. It's been like a long time of like running these coilovers. So basically like, love the way they work, love the adjustability. For me, I'm also in Florida. They are also in Florida. So if I need stuff, they're a day away shipping, or I could, honestly, I could go just drive there and get whatever I need to. You know what I mean? It's probably like an hour and a half drive or so. I don't know however long it is, but it's about an hour and a half or so. So like, yeah, you know what I mean? So you have any questions, comments, concerns, you can hit them up. They're gonna be more than happy to help you out. Boom, you know what I'm saying? Whatever, that's like what they do for a living, you know what I'm saying? So your drift car, your road race car, whatever the case is, they have pure race shit. They've got some wild shit. If that's what you're trying to go for, they fucking got it. Me, I'm sticking with the more basic shit, you know what I'm saying? I'm not trying to get too far out of my wheelhouse, you know what I mean? Because if I got the external fucking shock with digressive and progressive fucking adjustments, you know what I'm saying, two-way adjustments and all that shit, I'll keep it real with you. I don't know how long that would take me to set up, but it would be a long time, you know what I mean? So it would be faster to call them and say, hey, give me a baseline, you know what I'm saying? Honestly, they may give you a baseline for the suspension. Me personally, I like to go to 0, start with my own baseline. So that way I can figure out, hey, I want these coilovers to be in this range, or nah, maybe I don't, you know what I mean? You can leave it exactly they give it to you, which is usually, I think, right around the middle range or so. And you can go, a little too stiff, and turn it down a little bit, or a little bit too hard, or turn it up a little bit, you know what I'm saying? Or stiff, hard, stiff, soft, whatever the case is. So, I mean, it's all up to you. I like to go from my own settings, start from zero, work my way up. That way I can go, okay, I know I'm this many clicks. Also, as a side note, if you think you're gonna be adjusting the coilovers a lot, if it's a daily driver car, do whatever you gotta do, whatever. If it's a car you're gonna probably do performance with, or you really wanna like really dial your shit in, I highly recommend that when you adjust your dampening, write down where your front is, where your rear is, how many clicks from hard and soft you are, and then put a date on it. That way, every time you write it down, it goes down the list. Even if it's one click, doesn't matter. If it's one click for 5 minutes and you don't like it and you put it back, okay, you don't gotta write it down. But if you say one click and you leave it there, write it down. See what I'm saying? That way you can see exactly where your numbers are at with the data on there too. You know what I'm saying? You can go, okay, this was my last entry point. This was 6 months ago. This is where we're at. You know, I think I wanna change it from here. And then from there, every change you make, write it down. That way you know where you're at. Otherwise, you gotta start counting clicks left, counting clicks right. Oh man, I forgot. I have more clicks in the front than I have in the rear. You know what I'm saying? So like, for me, like my silver GTR, it's a daily driver car. So like once I've tuned where I like the car to be, it's just gonna stay that way. I'm not tracking the car and then going back on the street. It's just a street car, you know what I mean? This car, this is just a hot boy car that's gonna drift. Where it's gonna get set up and feel good is where it's gonna stay for a while. Will I optimize it down the road? Of course, I can't help it, you know what I'm saying? So we'll get there when we get there, you know what I mean? For the time being, I matched the style of how these coilovers were to this. I expect it to work just fine. These are brand new coilovers. They're awesome. They work fantastic. You know, that's what we are. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, I think that's gonna be it for this video. I will probably pull this car out in the sunlight. It is now dark. I had to do a bunch of errands, do a bunch of extra bullshit. So, you know, had to stop this thing, and it's at nighttime. It's actually a lot nicer because it's not so hot. This camera and that camera both overheated several times while I was recording. Like, it's crazy. It's super hot in here in Florida, you know what I'm saying? Well, specifically in my building, you know what I mean? No insulation, just a big steel building that's beat on by the sun all day, you know what I mean? So yeah, hope you enjoyed the video. If you have any questions, hit them in the comments. Also, merch link, always in the comments, you know, in the description, you know what I'm saying? So I'm gonna leave the link to the BC Coils in the description, and I'm gonna leave the link to this merch in every video. You already know, you know what I'm saying? So yeah, stick around, check it out, and always remember to stay sucker free.